Hi everyone, welcome back. So this is part 2 of the last video, January 20th and beyond. So I want to go a little more into depth about some of the things that I mentioned, especially in that first part of the video about, well, really quick, this video is for entertainment and spiritual purposes only. So one of the things that has come to my attention just as of yesterday is the article that the U.S. Treasury, I believe it was, and I'll put it down in the comments so you guys can read that for yourselves. But an article came out by the U.S. Treasury that said that they placed sanctions on Iran and Russia for interference in the 2024 U.S. election. So I was reading through the article and I was thinking, man, they really make it sound diplomatic and level-headed, but actually it's quite a big deal. And you'll see what I mean when you read it. They actually detail some of the, the web of the Russian influence on the U.S. elections, the different types of tactics, mostly propaganda style tactics that they use to influence people and therefore influence election results. And I think that this is really just the beginning of a lot of news coming out around this topic. And so I want to tune in. I've already done that, but I'm just going to, tune in again here and see and make sure that I'm giving you guys all the message. So as I see it, there will definitely be more news coming out surrounding this topic. This is not it. This is just the beginning, and each piece of literature or article or statement or whatever it is that comes out about it, it'll be a step further, deeper into the truth, so we can better understand the fuller picture around it. So you guys stay tuned to the news for that. There is more, so let me see. And then they showed me this image. They showed it to me before when I tuned in, and they're showing it to me again, my guides, my counsel, of Biden just absolutely furious, not at the news, because he's already known the news or he's known this information for quite some time, but it's more so that they have all of this evidence, and yet still these fools are going to try and lie about it. And that's what is infuriating him the most in this image that I see. And I see it. It's like he's strong-armed, though, because he can only say so much, because they've got this sort of, this net set up for them to be caught in. And there are certain things that they're waiting on in order to kind of pull that rope there. And they're just straight up lying, Nope, this is a witch hunt. We can hear it. We know what the orange blob says, right, about anything that comes out against him, that it's fake news, and they're definitely going to do that. There's already been, I think, some kind of text where he was saying, oh, they're going to try to mess up, swearing us in on January 3rd and potentially beyond, so you guys don't let them do that kind of thing. And so we're going to see a lot more of that. But I'm also getting that the U.S. is really, they're going to see through it, far quicker and far easier this time go round. Like, we're just not buying that shit anymore, And, well, I never bought it, but I'm just saying, for those who did used to try to give them the benefit of the doubt, that ship has sailed. And so he's not going to have that support that he thinks that he's going to get by saying those things. And what I also see is, yeah, Biden's there and he's furious, but I'm also seeing an image of EM, and I'm not going to say his name, but you know whose initials that, who that stands for. And they showed me this image of, or gave me this memory of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There was one episode where one of the characters was a dentist and he unalived his partner. And I think it was played by that guy, the black guy, Sterling. His name is Sterling. I don't know if that's his first name or his last name, but he used to be on This Is Us. But anyway, in that interrogation room where Jake Peralta and his chief, oh my God, Raymond Holt, are interrogating him. The guy's like a stone wall, and he's just like, nope, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it. And finally, what triggers him into confessing is because Jake Peralta storms in there, gives him the rundown of how he thinks he did it, but he got some of the details wrong. And that like enrages the guy who unalived his partner. And so to set the record straight, so they know that he is so thorough and so meticulous and so calculated, he has to let them know that, yeah, I did it, and this is how I did it. You got that wrong, you know? And so I see a similar thing happening with EM, where he almost can't stand the fact that they're given credit, it seems. They're giving credit to someone else, you know, about the details of how the interference went down, when in actuality, a lot of it was him. And he's like, no, you guys got it wrong. I did that. I changed the numbers. I gave him the idea of how to do it. And then I see Biden just kind of standing there like, haha, gotcha. You know, like, you fool, you told on yourself. And that's exactly what we wanted. So yeah. All right, so back to the image of that side-by-side image that I had. One image was of Inauguration Day, completely deserted. No one in the seats, no one at the podium. I could hear the wind whipping through, like it was totally abandoned. And then later I saw, and it was so funny, like a guy comes out and he pulls the mic off the head of the stand and walks back in, you know, to the building. And so it's like, yeah, I still don't think that that's going to happen. And I guess we will see how it goes. But next to that image was of Biden on stage next to Kamala, and him saying something like, you know, it took a lot of work for democracy to be restored to the American people, something like that. And I remember saying that I saw, you know, law enforcement in their full getup, like it was some kind of ceremony or celebration happening, and they had on the white gloves and their hats, and they were kind of marching the way that they do. Now, at the time when I said that, I didn't know that Jimmy Carter had died. And so it was, I think maybe the next day that was mentioned in the news, or, you know, a little later that day or something like that. And so I tuned in about that, and I was told a resounding yes, that it's tied to his, that image is tied to his death. And so how it's tied, though, is quite interesting. I feel like what's happening, or when they're going to schedule his death, is around the time the inauguration would be, maybe a little bit before, and yeah, it could be possibly you know, a couple of days before, something like that. And so but the reason that it's scheduled there, well, for one, because, you know, certain things have to be done in a certain time frame once a person passes away, but also it's going to act as some kind of bridge. So I clearly heard it's a bridge into the new era, and that Jimmy Carter kind of decided to go ahead and let go because he knew that he could be useful in this way. And what way is that? Well, helping us understand or remember what presidential is, because I mean, if he wasn't presidential, I don't know who was. And also kind of giving us a moment of peace, I heard, and in some kind of way helping us to restore our faith for the future. Because like how I'm feeling right now, I mean, I, of course, never met him. I vaguely remember. I haven't looked at too much that is about him, but he had a kind of calming presence. But it was also hopeful, in some kind of way, because that's the feeling that I'm getting right now. And so that's what I feel like, his passing and his funeral are going to help give to the public. And in that sense, it's the bridge there into the new era. It's also going to give us something to focus on for a bit, kind of like a distraction, I feel, because behind the scenes there will be stuff happening that we are not really going to ever hear about in the public, right? Because I said, okay, so what's going to be happening behind the scenes in the White House and with Congress and with the government? And I just see them furiously writing, on pieces of paper. And I know it's a metaphor because they showed me an image of like this long table with people on both sides, and they are officials, and they are like preparing documents. Some kind of, I don't really know what it is, but it does feel like the night of January 5th, because that's what I heard, that this kind of feverish fury to create some documents that need to be had might be taking place. And initially when I tuned in, I asked, okay, so everybody knows what's going on. Why wouldn't they prepare that stuff before this late in the game? And I heard no. A lot of people do not know, especially those who are in Congress. They don't know all the skinny on what's happening. The intuitives know. The people who are paying attention know, but for some reason, they're not up to date and don't quite believe it. And so it's going to be a total shock to a lot of them, because I said, well, what's their response going to be? And I just saw them like freeze, just totally freeze, like in mid-step. And some of them kind of do an about face and are rushing towards an exit. And again, it's a metaphor, but that's what I see going down. And then Mr. Carter said, "It's good to be alive," when I tuned into him. And he's like, haha, just joking. But he said, yeah, my passing was peaceful. And that I feel quite deeply. He also played a tune in my ear, kind of like working on the railroad. And I think what the message is behind there is like, they're working diligently, and he's going to be there alongside him, kind of like, that little voice on the shoulder, making sure that everything is done in the way that it needs to help it unfold the way that it needs to. Really quick, this video is for entertainment and spiritual purposes only. So what I also saw surrounding the whole, the orange blob putting out messages about how it's a witch hunt and they're going to try to, interfere with us being sworn in and that kind of thing, is that they've already had some kind of, his little posse, whoever he's involved with, including EM and PT and whoever else, is on this like crusade to take over the world, like some tired ass Pinky and the Brain episode, where they actually think they're going to succeed. But I saw that they had already had a meeting, kind of trying to get one step ahead. But ultimately they don't feel like something's going to be done, like our current government just doesn't have the wherewithal to know the depths of the crime, or to pull together the proof, or to actually do something about it. But with that, staying one step ahead, that they've kind of had this meeting that I see, and they've agreed to a story just in case. But that ain't gonna matter at all when it comes down to it, because what I also saw is that them fools are going to be pointing fingers left and right. Well, he did it. Well, he did it. Well, they did it. Well, they said that. Well, they paid for that, and that's really, it's just going to all come undone. I see papers flying. I see them running out. And I don't think that story would hold at all, especially with EM, if he does confess the way that I saw in that other image. Okay, so as I was asking to connect to P. Till, I accidentally connected to Emmett Till because I had said his name in my mind. And I'll get back to his message at the end there, because it's different. It's separate from the election, but it is a really important message. But for P. Till, first of all, I don't like tuning into him. I don't know what's wrong with this dude. So I see him making, or at least attempting to make, like some mad dash once the shit hits the fan. They showed me this image of him like running and grabbing onto a blade of his helicopter and like, flying out of here. So dramatic, like that grand exit kind of thing. And he doesn't get far though before somebody is telling him that he has to come back before he gets over to a certain, bounds over water, and he's out of what's the word? I've got district in my head, but that's not it. But out of the area where, somebody over here or the officials wherever can actually do something legally to bring him in and question him. But then once he is brought in, I just see him like almost convulsing on the floor. And I don't know what that's about. I mean, some other intuitives have tuned into him before and said that he's on his fair share of narcotics, and that may be true, because what I'm seeing is like him coughing up all this phlegm, just a crazy sweaty mess, all red, kind of doubled over, falling over on himself, like he just cannot keep it together. And then I heard withdrawals, so he gonna have a rough time. I also see though that on the other side of them withdrawals, there may be like some clearing of his mind to where he no longer is as volatile or deranged, maybe, as he currently is, because with all that stuff flowing through your system, if that is true, it's almost like I see like, this image of his veins just inhaling whatever it is that he takes. And but once that stuff is out of your system, you tend to think a lot clearer, and it'll begin to settle him down. But I also heard that he has a long way to go before he gets back to being a, quote, normal human being. So I mean, I don't know why that was the message that wanted to come through, but that's what I heard. And for those that don't know what his involvement may be in all this, you guys can go watch Rosie Insights. She breaks it down in one of her videos, one of the past videos. But in a nutshell, him and JD Vance had a romance. He financed him, his seat to be in whatever, so he could eventually become the VP pick. And so he's all well intertwined with what's happening here. Really quick, this video is for entertainment and spiritual purposes only. And as far as what may be coming down the line that we need to prepare for, I'm not going to go deep in the doom and gloom. Some folks do roll deep in that direction. But what I've been shown is that we are protected on all fronts. And of course, we hope that we always are, right? And I know that they are doing what they can to mitigate any potential violence or situations. That's what I've been told. And as of today, they already they caught someone with a ton of homemade explosives in Virginia, so that's a good thing. And I think they're going to keep on that track to of course keep us as safe as possible. So in addition to that, the other thing I heard is that maybe communications might be interfered with, and I'm feeling like phones for some reason, but just telecommunications. But they also show me a flip of the switch. So as soon as it goes down, as soon as it's switched into the off position, it comes back up and it's on again. So it's not going to be anything that lasts a long time. I'm hearing the whole ordeal will be over in less than 3 days. Not to say that the phones will be out for 3 days, or that the TVs or the internet, but that like the whole ordeal, that's what I'm getting, will be over in less than 3 days once they begin to really clean this mess up. So there's that. But whenever we're talking about intuitive / psychic work, then just understand that there is always a possibility of a wild card in the mix, right? We are dealing with a future that is not yet set in stone, although intuitives can pick up on the momentum and the energy around that and see what direction things are most likely moving. There is always free will that people have, and there are a lot of moving parts just in the regular mundane day, let alone something of this size. So things that you can do, and that I'll most likely be doing at least a little bit of, maybe grabbing some cash, which I've already done, staying at home for the most part, because that's usually where I am anyway, and out of them streets, right? And maybe just, picking up a couple extra essential items. But of course, do what you feel you gotta do, and that is best for you and your family. Okay, so on to Emmett Till. And I am going to tune into him again, just to make sure that I don't miss any of the message that he shared. But to, for those who do not know who he is or was, he was a 14-year-old boy who was lynched during 1955. The story goes that it was 1955 during the civil rights in Mississippi. So the story goes that he whistled at a white woman in a grocery store, and that night or the following day, something like that, her husband and her brothers, or the husband's brothers, went to his house, dragged him out, killed him, and then drug him through the street as, some kind of example. It was also right after an election happened, and, the election was all based around civil rights. Are black people going to get rights? That's what they want. White people don't want them to have them. And it was really the end and the beginning of a new era. So I guess in that sense, it does connect in to modern day in this moment that we're living right now. Is to say it was an extremely rough place and time to be alive in. Hysteria was extremely high, and somebody described it as a never-ending Nazi army. And so that's what people were living under. Pressure from, from every direction, ready to kind of boil out into the streets. And so that's what they did to this 14-year-old innocent boy. I don't care what the law said. Whistling is, that's insane. For that to be something that that triggers that kind of atrocity. But anyway, I tuned into him, and he does have a very beautiful message. So just let me take a breath here. I'll be happy to tell you again, ma'am. That's what he said. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Right. So I was asking about race here in the United States, and if we would see anything before the end of my life, shift or change, and be different than what it has been or what it currently is. And he showed me this, he's showing me again, like a wave or a tide, and how we are at the most, or the least, how we are at the least volatile place, the least volatile point on that tide right now. And that we are moving into, a newer, stabilizing, in a way, well, actually far more stabilizing era around race. Now, of course, and then he throws his hand out but it's far out. It's almost like, here we are in the middle of the line, or a little farther past the middle point, and we still got, a long ways to go. But it is possible, probably not in my lifetime, or maybe even the next, but in that that one thereafter, because the line is going. That's there where it will no longer be an issue, and no longer be something kind of vibrating through society. But as far as what we may see between now and at least the rest of my life, I see some laws being reversed, and I know what he's mentioning, because he's bringing it up again. It's kind of along the lines of things that we've seen, like affirmative action and DEI, those sort of laws being reversed that kind of gave us some protections, but then I see new laws being written that gives us even more protections. And then he showed me something really spectacular, because I asked earlier when I tuned in, okay, are there any prominent people that are alive right now, like the Martin Luther King Jr.'s or the Malcolm X's, that are going to help, nail this thing down for us and get people thinking about race in a different way? And yeah, there are the fire starters, sure, but we all hold light for that, because he just showed me an image of every one of us having a little drop of light, and then together it really makes a difference. And then he showed me, as he's showing me again here, a line, or not a crowd, hundreds and hundreds of black people, all standing in a crowd, all facing, who represent the institutions. But right in front of that line of black people is a line of white people. And they are tearing up those people who represent the institutions. And it's almost as if the black people don't even have to say anything, because they are letting them have it. And the message behind that, because then I had a memory of this one post I saw on Threads or something, of this woman telling her story, how she was headed over to a march in Los Angeles, and police officers came around the corner. They must have known where she was headed to, and they crossed the street before she gets there, and they get out of their cars and they pull guns out, and it's 4 of them, and they're all shouting at her, "Get out on the ground, hands up, don't move," all this crazy stuff. And she's just terrified. And so of course she's trying to get down on the ground so she doesn't get hurt. And in come 2 white women, or two white girls, she said, out of nowhere. She didn't even see them. And they're like, telling the officers off. She didn't do anything. Let her go. What are you doing? Get back in your car. This is ridiculous. And they just keep going and keep going until the officers retreat because, there's too many witnesses now, right? And so they retreat and drive off and leave the woman alone. And so that's the kind of thing. And so at the end of that story, though, the woman says, I'm not sure, but I think this is how white privilege is supposed to be used. And I feel like that was the message around that image that Emmett Till was showing me, that we're going to have more people standing up for us, like getting a freaking clue about what's actually going on here and how helpful they can be with their privilege and using it in a positive and impactful way. But of course, my very skeptical, rational brain asked a follow-up question. I said, yeah, but hasn't there always been white allies, whether or not we could really trust them and rely on them when the time came and we needed to? And then I was reminded of another thing I saw on social media. It was of people being interviewed in 1956 or something like that. And a Civil Rights Act had just passed. And it was like during that time of hysteria. And the person interviewing them said, well, how do you feel about this? And everyone being interviewed was kind of confused. A lot of people were like, we don't, all the people being interviewed were white. And a lot of people were saying, we don't agree with this. We don't think it's right. I'm going to be living next door to a ninja. This, how absurd, all these things, right? And then some people were like, well, if they just stay peaceful, then maybe it won't be so bad. But I don't know. This is kind of crazy. So most people were uncomfortable with the idea. But then Emmett Till said it's going to be the exact opposite. They're going to be advocating much louder, and there will be far more than there has ever been advocating for us. So I'm going to hold that, keep it, as something to look forward to in the future. And one of the questions I asked him was, who would you have become, or what would you have done with your life if you were allowed to actually live it? And then he showed me an image of him standing with a league of people who had all died similar race-related, hate crimes the way that he did. And the feeling behind that was he had fulfilled his purpose. That's the reason that he had been here, was to be, this mirror back of the horrors that exist in the United States. And of course, me being a parent, I said, wow, that caused so much grief to your mom and to your family. And she, never found the justice she was looking for your death. And he's like, I know, it broke her heart, but it's what needed to be done. And from that, she became stronger, and she never took a day for granted after that. And his last words, and he's saying them again to me. It's kind of like that hold fast and stay strong. That's what I'm hearing. Hold fast and stay strong. The worst is over. The best is yet to come. So I'm going to leave it there. You guys hold fast, stay strong. I think there's a part 3 coming. I'm almost positive. So I'll get that up as soon as possible. But that is all for today. And if you got something out of this video, please hit the like and subscribe and set your notifications, and I will see you next time. One more thing before I go. So I started what I call the Spiritualist Collective. And right now it's just for Black women because we need something that's just for us, that's sacred, that's safe. And we get together virtually and share our intuitive gifts and deepen our skills and build community. And in the future, I'll be opening it up to everyone. But if this sounds like something you're interested in, I'm going to have the link in the description, and hopefully I'll see you there.